Let's continue to move throughout graphic design history. We're going to talk about the pop art movement, and this roughly lasted from the 1950s to the 1970s. Everyday things get exciting. Colorful and bold pop art originated in the United States and the United Kingdom. One might instantly think of the famous artist Andy Warhol when viewing this over-the-top style. What pop art challenged was the traditional forms of fine art by using everyday, mundane objects as its subject matter, usually in a comic book type style. A famous example by Andy Warhol is his painting of a simple can of Campbell's soup. These everyday objects became interesting and resonated with viewers because pop art was very relatable. A far cry from the delicate and intricate patterns and pictures of perfection from the Renaissance era. What defines pop art is a haphazard, less clean style that focuses on the subject and less on grids and precision and being perfect. Rough sketch lines, torn newspapers, collages were common elements used in pop art. Pop art defined the 1960s advertising style with a colorful, if sometimes sarcastic, sense of humor. It brought a down-to-earth style mainstream to sell products. The globe witnessed a huge resurgence of pop art style in the 1990s as well. You might have seen this pattern before. It's called a halftone pattern, and it originated in this time period. If there was a mantra to this style, it would be do not let rules limit your style. One of the most well-known logo designs of our time is the famous red lips of the band The Rolling Stones. It makes a big statement with a comical undertone and a slight defiance of social norms. Most logos that adapt a pop art style have very expressive typography, like in the Pizza Head logo by this designer. It usually consists of custom handwritten typography where text characters, rather than follow a straight line, caress each other and fit together almost like a puzzle piece. The beginning of the pop art style naturally gave birth to another boom. That's the advertising boom. From the 1960s to the 1990s, we were oversaturated with advertising. Don't try to be original, just try to be good. Famous designer Paul Rand, who lived from 1914 to 1996. As corporation ad budgets grew larger in the mid-20th century, so did their appetite for art and design. Graphic designers were no longer relegated to just placing words on a page or arranging photos for a newspaper. Now they played huge roles in helping companies establish visual brands, logos, global advertising campaigns, and assisting companies in connecting with their audience visually. Paul Rand, a once humble self-taught graphic designer, hint, self-taught, just like myself and many of you, turned global art director, developed iconic logos for Ford, ABC, and IBM. Paul Rand fused the artistic side of design with the more practical business side and marketing side of things. He made graphic design an essential part of the booming advertising department. Rand was most known for developing corporate identities. His approach was not to be bold, eccentric, but to be effective in his design approach, making sure to avoid over-complex visual ideas for the sake of just artistic expression. Drawing inspiration from style movements before him, he made sure every stroke and object had meaning and had a purpose for being there in context. After the advertising boom, we move into the postmodern design movement, roughly lasting from the 1980s to the 1990s. This would be described as bright and experimental, and let's break some rules. If you like being odd, fun, quirky, bold, and if you break design rules often established by the likes of the Swiss typographic style and Bauhaus movement, you might find yourself in the movement of postmodern design. It developed in the late 1960s, but really became a popular interior design style in the 1970s and 80s. Deconstructionism was a movement within postmodern design, which gave buildings a fragmented look. It uses non-rectangular shapes and distorted exteriors. This is all to challenge and push further the rigid classical architecture of the past. There is a vast perception of movement in postmodern art with rounded corners and objects that tend to appear in motion with non-linear lines. Abstract logos were born out of this movement of breaking the grid, but also providing this fluid movement with rounded edges and overlapping elements. Let's talk about a real-life example. This is the Parsons logo, and Parsons is a design school that's part of the famed The New School in New York City, and it adapted a random variable typeface for its branding standards called New Random. It would randomly set different character widths as is user typed, thus creating a totally rule-breaking look to its typography and its logos. This was controversial at the time, and most things that are postmodern try to be controversial, but it decides to be different. The design school has a philosophy of trying new things and developing the future of design, so it made a lot of sense for the brand. So what movement are we in right now? I would call that the digital age. The move to digital merged style with usability. What has made styles evolve in the last decade has been an increase in user experience design. UX, or user experience, puts the user at the center of the focus, ensuring there is no roadblocks to accomplishing their goals, wishes, and desires. If it is a food ordering app, then focusing on UX allows the user to quickly move to checkout and process the order, while also enjoying the smooth, easy experience. Perhaps the app makes sure the item was not forgotten upon checkout, with a notification that provides a very visual experience to flow through the app quickly and easily. The digital age has brought us to new territory. Now that digital devices are super small and mobile, everything we create as designers must adapt to this new world. Complicated, detailed logos are still great for other brand assets, but for the use of a main company identifier, you must think about the small spaces in which it now must exist. Before mobile devices were our main interaction with the world, we browsed the internet using desktop computers. The screens were generous and allowed the creation of more complicated logo marks with drop shadows, blurred highlights, and layers. I tend to think of the original Yahoo and Google logos when I consider this style in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Apple changed the world with their high-gloss, slick-looking iMac computer with transparent back and individualized color choices. Their advertising changed too, with the added super glossy, slick-looking effect. This style you may refer to as Web 2.0 if you lived back then. This was a move to make brands look high-tech and ready to help you move into the future with the latest technology. Other brands followed with this glossy look and adopted the name Web 2.0 in its reference to how much the web has evolved since the early 2000s. A lot of tech companies followed suit with these extra details. Popular effects included reflections, like the logo was sitting on top of glass. Others used gradients, curved highlights, and anything that can emulate glass, as you can see here. Apple released the iPhone, and with it came these hyper-realistic looking icon designs. This was called skeuomorphic design, where layers and realism was favored. These icons almost had a tactile feeling to them with textures, patterns, and highlights. A popular example is the Instagram logo from 2015. As we move later into the digital age, we have the era of flat design from 2008 to current. And if it could be simplified, it was, similar to past movements like Bauhaus or Swiss style. As we moved into the second decade of the 21st century, we experienced a total contrast to all of the detailed and effective-driven design. The flat design era was upon us. This was a counter to the Web 2.0 look that almost every company had embraced at that point. And as we talked about before, once one style movement has gone too far, a counter movement ensues, and the future is no different. Flat design has zero effects, drop shadows, and details. Flat design also became very overused and oversaturated in the last 2 decades, and especially the last decade where almost every company had a flat logo design style. And back and forth goes the styles. Now the pendulum is swinging the other way in the last few years as more hand-drawn elements are sneaking their way back into logos, but also keeping it flat and clean, unlike the logos of the early 21st century. This is because we are making sure our logos remain expressive and unique, but also can adapt to those smaller screen sizes and be practical for the sake of the user.